Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Living on Blockchain. Today, we are speaking to Roy. Roy is the founder of Peller as well as LightLink, which is the infrastructure with the new internet. That is what they're calling themselves. It's basically an L2, and they have a specific USP when it comes to enterprises. They have a special enterprise mode. It's a layer 2 blockchain solution secured by Ethereum, purposely built for Metaverse, NFT, and gaming applications. It was a very interesting conversation. I can't wait for you guys to hear it. Let's deep dive right in. Hi, Roy. Thank you so much for making the time to speak to me today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Nice to meet you as well. Thank you for asking me to participate on your podcast.
It's my absolute pleasure. So, for our listeners, can you tell us a little about how you got into Web3 and what you're building currently?
Yeah, sure. I developed a fascination into Bitcoins back in 2012, so fairly early on in the journey. Um, the technology has always been very fascinating from my perspective because I've loved computers for as long as I remember. I have a computer science degree and have been dealing with technology for my entire professional career. I've been a technology entrepreneur for the past 22 years. And
Wow.
the Bitcoin technology being one of the first applications of blockchain as a industry, it's hard to ignore, right? I always thought it was one of those technology wave. It's almost like a one of those industry paradigm shifts, right? Just like internet, just like personal computing, just like mobile applications. It's
Yeah,
something that's so fundamentally different. And lo and behold, 10 years later, here we are in a world that has, I think, largely substantially changed by this technology.
absolutely. I think this particular decentralized technology, blockchain technology, has the potential to change everything and have an impact on basically a lot of sectors, I feel as well. And now we are like nearly 10, 12 years in, and it's still in its infancy. And it's wonderful to say how, it's kind of evolving. And more and more people are taking a look and trying to become a part of this revolution. It is a new era in technology, like you said.
Yeah, exactly right. Um, I totally agree. When I saw this technology, I read the white paper, and one of the first thing I think a lot of engineers would do would be try to experiment with the technology.
Right.
So I actually took a bit of time to try to build a blockchain myself.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote some read some technical white papers and looked at existing technology out there and said, how can it be? Let's try to build one ourselves, right? Because the
Yeah.
concept, if you try to explain it, it's actually it's not as complex as parts of asymmetric cryptography, for example. But when you look at blockchain as a technology, it's actually it can be explained and it can be built. So over a span of a few hours, you can actually build a blockchain from scratch.
Right.
Rudimentary elements of it. So that's essentially where we started. Where we started experimenting with the technology, I saw the implications of this technology because when you have a chain of blocks, a chain of data, the historical data is anchored as a truth in all future data. So it's almost like a continuous line of mathematical proofs to say the past data has been evolved to the current data. And that
Yeah.
attribute, that immutability attribute, has been very fascinating from my perspective, at least. So I always thought this technology could be the truth of the world, right? So, like our marriage records, our birth records, our land titles, our wealth, our various information could be stored on the blockchain, and to a certain degree, the world is using it for this purpose. But I think over time we've discovered many other applications of the technology too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are so many different use cases, and the way this technology can be perhaps implemented in day-to-day life is yet to be fully explored, and that is what makes it wonderful. And like you said, this is a space where there are different elements that are perhaps already available because a lot of it is open source, and you can create and build your own chain with these as well. So that kind of brings me to LightLink and what you guys are doing there. Can you tell me a little about LightLink and how it came into existence. How has the vision evolved since its inception?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. So when we exited our e-commerce company back in 2017, that was the first ICO wave. We built a blockchain solutions company called Pella, and we were building, various enterprise applications in digital payments, in asset tokenization, supply chain, all kinds of technology around blockchain. And we saw the applications of enterprise blockchain. It's fairly fast, it's predictable, but we also saw the issues with private enterprise blockchains, and those are that interconnected disconnectedness to the rest of the world, that opaqueness and lack of trust. You really have to establish trust if you're a private blockchain. And since 2021, we've been building a lot of non-fungible technology in building digital collectibles in the sporting world, with movie stars, with artists, larger media IP, and things like that. And a lot of that technology was on layer one Ethereum, namely. And when you look at Ethereum layer one technology, you have lots of innovation, a fantastic economy, a fantastic community, but you have a lot of latency, cost, throughput issues, right? And
Absolutely. Yeah.
you when you see both sides of that equation, you have enterprise blockchains, private blockchains that has these characteristics, and layer one blockchain has other characteristics. And we had all of these clients that were demanding a solution that wasn't good enough on both sides. So, well, when the concept of layer twos came around, we thought, hey, actually, there is a solution in the middle where you can bring the best of enterprise blockchains, the best of layer ones, and you can merge them into a solution that's layer two technology, and that's where LightLink came around. We essentially built it on the need of our customers, our clients, our partners, and it's a layer two EVM blockchain. It uses Ether as a native token. You can write Solidity-based smart contracts, and you can deploy that onto our public network. What makes LightLink different and unique is its enterprise mode. So we essentially have
Okay.
two gas modes. One is the public mode, just like Optimism, Arbitrum, other layer twos, and the other is trying to solve a problem which we have been hearing over and over again with our enterprise customers. And they typically start with a proof of concept on Polygon or Binance or Ethereum, and it works great. It demonstrates all the characteristics of blockchain. But they typically ask me this question, right?
Right.
I have 100,000 users. How much is the infrastructure going to cost me for the next 6 months? Or
Hmm.
I want to issue 1 million NFTs. Can you estimate how much that is going to cost, right? And those are, fairly simple questions to answer if you're dealing with a Web2 world, a SaaS world. But it's a very difficult question to answer in the public chain world. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
because you have all of these variables, supply and demand essentially sets the value of the native token, and also supply and demand from an on-chain resource perspective sets the variable of gas price. And when you have variables times variable times, a constant, you have huge variations in the end result. And that's why sometimes when you send USDT, it costs $2, and sometimes it costs $5. So
Right.
there's that huge degree of uncertainty, which the enterprise customers don't really want to hear. And this is where we try to come up with a solution where LightLink has a different gas mode built for enterprise customers, where they can have a bit more predictability and certainty. They can pay us in fiat and know exactly what they're going to get from a transaction capability perspective, latency, throughput. All of those parameters are within the level of tolerance that they expect. So essentially, two gas modes.
Wow. Okay. So that this is like this has to be your USP, right? Because I've never heard of this before. Like that there are two gas modes, and that is super interesting to know. Can you tell me a little bit more about how this sort of works on a technical end?
Yeah, sure. Um, because we built the chain from ground up, we have
Hmm.
a bit more customization capability.
Okay.
And it's a requirement that our customers wanted. And because we built a enterprise blockchain in the past, we're able to reuse some of the previous thinking, architecture into this design. From a user perspective, when a smart contract on a public network is whitelisted on LightLink, of course, um, the interaction with the smart contract from a user perspective is gasless.
Okay.
So let's use USDT as an example, right? Like on a public network like Ethereum, when you send USDT, you need Ether as the gas token to send that USDT, right? So you might send one USDT, the recipient receives one, but you might burn $2 or $5 equivalent of Ether. So the native tokens required for that transaction to occur. Now, in the case of a enterprise mode enabled smart contract, that transaction for the user to send USDT is gasless. So when you send USDT, the other party receives USDT, and there's no need for gas. And I think that has a huge implication because it reduces the barrier to entry, it removes complexity, and it introduces a really positive user experience when interacting with that smart contract. From a technical perspective, yeah, we spent a lot of time and effort in terms of making this happen.
Hmm.
But we also borrowed a lot of thinking from the best minds in the world, right? Vitalik came up with the modular blockchain thesis for our blockchain ecosystem, and there are a lot of really smart people in the world, and we're essentially building on top of that ingenuity.
Wow, this is very, very interesting. I find this very fascinating because obviously there are multiple blockchains and nowadays quite a few of them, and this has to be one of the defining factors in your journey. So you guys are using optimism, right? That is something that you are doing as well for your faster transactions and throughput.
Yeah, so I would say our blockchain architecture implements a optimistic type of architecture. We don't
Hmm.
use the optimism network per
Okay.
se, so we're not a part of the super chain.
Okay.
So we publish proofs on layer one. We post our data on a separate data availability layer, and by doing that, we are substantially more efficient from a cost perspective comparing to a optimistic roll up. So instead of rolling up to layer one, we roll up to a data availability layer. And by doing that, we have a substantially less cost base because we don't incur the same gas fees on the layer one, and therefore we can pass on that reduction in cost to our customers. So we can essentially process blocks at a much higher frequency. So at the moment, it's 500 milliseconds at a higher capacity, reaching essentially a throughput of more than 5,000 transactions per second. And
Wow.
and also at a substantially lower cost base because we're only publishing proofs on layer one, and that's a substantially lower transaction costs comparing to posting essentially all of your data onto layer one.
Oh, this is wonderful. The more I hear about it, the more I like it, and I would like to perhaps deploy a few apps as well on
Thanks.
LightLink. It sounds wonderful. So more power to you guys. What would you consider your niche? Like I know that this is a tricky question to ask, for especially for
Yeah.
somebody who's founded a blockchain. But where would you think that your chain's supremacy kind of aligns with which niche? Like, would it be metaverse, NFTs, or gaming?
Yeah. Great question. It's a hard question to answer because it's
Hmm.
infrastructure.
Right.
Now, when we talk to our customers, we want them to see value utilizing the chain. Now, if we are providing the exact same solution technology to our customers, then there's probably no reason to do the same thing. So we constantly think about how can we create more value. We are, if you look at our current chain, we're processing about 50 to 100,000 transactions every day, still fairly small comparing to the capacity of the chain. And when you look at the transactions that's posted on the chain, it's predominantly gaming at the moment. And it validates this idea I have, and I'm hoping to tell more game developers to consider in this mindset.
Hmm.
When you are building a Web3 game, you probably receive a grant from a large layer one. You would try to do a PFP collection or introduce a something of value, and you post
Right.
those transactions on layer one, right? So you might have USDT as a reward, you might have a token as a ERC20, and you'll give users a reward in this exercise. So it largely talks about having highly valued assets on layer ones. And that makes complete sense because layer ones have the largest economy, have the most vibrant ecosystem, have the most developers, have the most participation. So of course, your CryptoPunk or Bored Ape or your Metaverse PFPs should be on Ethereum. Your USDT should be on Ethereum. But when you look at the other side of that gaming developer and the data that they produce, there are other things that require higher transactional throughput and lower latency, and it might not have the same value. And those things are like experience points, what level I am, the achievements, the badges, the in-game assets. A typical game or ecosystem produce a lot more data than
Hmm.
your highly valued assets. So
Right.
the current mindset is for these developers to store all of this information on layer one, and they find out it's going to cost them $100,000 per day. So they would go, hey, actually, let's just put in the database. But then if you're putting, achievement information, badges information, game assets into a database, it's not really a Web3 game, right? It's not a Web3 project because it's only when you surface this information on chain, it becomes transparent, it becomes
Right.
interoperable. When another game read what's in your wallet, it can curate a wonderful customized experience for you. And so it makes sense for you to put that information on chain. When then you look at where do we put it? And of course, layer two is the obvious answer because it has more capacity. Then you think about, is it optimism? Is it arbitrum? Is it immutable? And each one of those has its own pros and cons. And what we're trying
Right.
to introduce in this equation is predictability. And that's it. If you want to support 100,000 users, you know exactly how much the exercise is going to cost. And for Web3 users to interact with the system, we want to remove the barrier to entry. So that's where we are seeing the most success in application as of today. We have a game called the Red Village, a super cool battle royale game. We have Tally Up, we have Grapes, a excellent project within the Animoca portfolio companies. And they're writing substantial amounts of transactions onto LightLink today, right? And these transactions show I played this game at this time, I completed this game at this score, and I had this outcome. And it's
Right.
an NFT. And that information becomes public, and then next time when you play a different game within the same ecosystem or a different ecosystem, that data becomes permissionless. And it's really interesting to see, the portability of this idea and how this idea can be utilized in many different industries.
Wow, that sounds that sounds very commendable, and it's very interesting. And I was just checking out, your social presence and your website. Can you tell us, like, see, I think in Web3 a lot comes down to community, and what you're building is a little akin to a 0 to 1 product. So there are two parts to this question: how big is the community involvement in a LightLink, and then how? And the second part is, how do you go about perhaps solving the chicken and egg problem? Because you need applications to get more transactions or to have more users using it, and but for those applications you need developers. So how are you incentivizing both users and devs to join you on your journey? And how big is a community in your vision?
Yeah, sure. There are many different layers to that question. So, firstly, our community is still relatively small. We have about 66,000 Twitter followers. Our Discord is about 40,000 users. We have about 38,000 users on Telegram. We're doing an airdrop campaign, and I think there's probably about 75,000 participants in the Galaxy airdrop campaign. And that has
Hmm.
been a quite interesting exercise and rewarding exercise for us. Our partner at Galaxy really promoted the chain, and we had a lot of active participants utilizing the chain as a result. So that's more of the public users of the ecosystem. And of course, we'll be doing more airdrop campaigns, forming more partnerships, and
Hmm.
incentivizing users to come and interact with the different protocols on top of the chain with
Right.
a airdrop campaign. And that's, Lightning tokens. Now, from a developer community perspective, one of the first applications that we integrated with is a no-code, low-code ecosystem. And I think as a result, there has been a lot of people experimenting with the chain. So if you look at the testnet, and I think as of today, I was looking at it today, there has been over 190,000 smart contracts deployed on our testnet. And that's
Wow.
quite fascinating to see developers or individuals are experimenting with deploying to the chain and to see what that experience is like. And we're also trying to create more structured programs in organizing hackathons in various parts around the world, in Asia, in Europe, around the globe, to experiment with gasless enterprise mode layer 2 capabilities. So we have three hackathons on the horizon at the moment. And of course, our foundation is putting forward a prize for developers. So that's the two elements of community. But I think the current Web3 ecosystem is still fairly small. It's when you talk about
Yeah.
crypto natives, you're talking about tens of thousands of developers or hundreds of thousands of participants. So it's still relatively small compared to the rest of the world. And that's where the ecosystem we have built for the past 6 years really coming. We're partly owned from our solutions company by one of the largest conglomerates in Asia. They're one of the largest investors in LightLink, and we are trying to utilize our enterprise contacts, our friends, clients over the years to bring millions of users into the ecosystem. And I hope I can see a merge of the two worlds, right? So
Right.
one is we're talking to protocols and providing them with a grant to participate in our ecosystem, like Wearable, for example, was recently integrated into our ecosystem, and they're a fairly reputable NFT ecosystem capability. So and we have DeFi, other types of infrastructure, public goods, deploying as Web3 capabilities on LightLink. Now, what I'm hoping to see is as user base increase on the enterprise side, can we start unlocking more features using Web3 native dApps in the same user experience on the enterprise side? So, for example, if you're using a digital wallet to pay for a public transportation use, maybe we can open up better micro lending or better saving capabilities using our existing DeFi systems, because it's interoperable by nature from a Web3 perspective. So that's what I'm hoping to see, and how we're trying to solve the chicken egg problem.
Wow, wonderful. That's good to know, because I think there are, again, there is in the last few years, quite a few blockchains have come up, and not everybody is able to crack this, and that is wherein lies the secret sauce as well as the magic. Because I think once you're able to crack this, then there is no stopping a good product. You mentioned that you're doing like airdrop campaigns with your native token. So are there two tokens involved in your chain? Like the enterprise is paying with Ethereum, and you also have a native token?
Yeah, so from a public gas fee perspective, it's in ETH.
Okay,
When you can bridge ETH over, you can use ETH to pay for gas, so on and so forth. So very similar to other layer twos. We
hmm,
made that deliberate choice because we wanted to reduce the barrier to entry. So if we
right.
ask developers to buy KYC, go to exchange and buy LightLink tokens, it sort of becomes a very difficult exercise to do. So we try to make that as simple as possible. So from an enterprise side perspective, they would pay in fiat, and then there's a whole gas token mechanic which converts fiat into LightLink tokens. Now, LightLink tokens has other utility too, in terms of participating in governance, and potentially in the future as a incentive for network validation, for checking proofs. And yeah, so we're designing various utility for the token. I think it's important to have that capability as key economic lever in the ecosystem, so we can incentivize behavior.
Awesome. So can you tell me a little about the next big milestone for for your platform?
Yeah, sure. So we're onboarding quite a few different projects,
Okay.
and those we like to talk about it when they become a little bit more tangible. So firstly, watch this space. We are working very closely with a large partner to introduce our technology across its portfolio companies. We're working with our one of the largest investors to introduce the network to its real world business units, whether if it's in retail or telecommunications. We are working with a fairly large NFT project to introduce experience points within its ecosystem. And yeah, so there's a lot of things going on, and it's never a dull day.
Wonderful. It's good to hear about all the progress that you guys are making, and all of these big partnerships coming through would obviously help your chain quite a bit. In terms of building on Lightning, can anybody just start building? Do you have like a developer community where they can get requisite support?
Yeah, so if you go to lightlink.io, the button on the homepage says build with us, and there's a lot of documentation there. If you join our Discord, there's a developer channel which I hang out from time to time and pop in my headings and say hello. But our developers certainly contribute to the conversation and help different people along the way. And anybody's welcome. The network is largely open, so there's a faucet. It's as simple as changing your RPC endpoint. We have code examples, how to integrate with the chain. And feel free to reach out if there are projects that if you're building a project that we should know about, or if we can help from any capacity.
Wonderful. I think I'd link up these details in the episode description as well, so that people who are looking to get in touch with you can get in touch with you with these. As leader in this space, and you've been around for a while, what personal lessons have you learned from your journey with LightLink? How do you navigate the dynamic and ever evolving landscape of blockchain?
Yeah, great question. I see the technology as the technology, and the technology is beautiful.
Yeah,
So that immutability, the mathematics, the cryptography, the way that network is built in redundancies, they're all beautiful. On the other side, because it's a technology where value is so entrenched into the the ecosystem. There's Ether, there's USDT, there's Lightning tokens. So value is attributed to a lot of these transactions.
right,
You will have bad actors on the other side that probably be rugging you or creating scams or trying to hack your crypto wallet, and those are the other side of having an open, permissionless, pseudonymous network where value is so central to the ecosystem. So yeah, I see both sides, and I think the technology is always a technology. The cat's out of the bag, the genie's out of the bottle. We can never go back to pre-internet, LLMs, ChatGPT type of scenarios, right? So this
yeah,
concept is out there. So when we are designing a new type of financial product or ways to recognize or modernize a registry or optimize the supply chain, this technology, so a blockchain technology, is going to come up in this conversation. So I think if we see the technology as a technology, it's probably a little bit better than talking about the speculative attributes because of the value nature of this technology.
absolutely. I completely agree. I think as someone who's been around for a while as well, like I think I started off my journey in Web3 probably sometime around you did, like 2011, 2012, with the early mining days. I had a data center company and we had hardware, so we wanted to basically put it to better use, and we started mining Zcash and some bits, some other tokens. But this has been such a journey, and people keep asking me the same thing. How is it that you're still around after seeing so many cycles and so many speculation? And I have the same answer that I don't really. The speculative part of it doesn't interest me so much. It's more about the technology. I fell in love with the technology, and that is why I entered the space, and that is why I'm here all of these years later, because I truly feel that, like you said, it's like Ginny in the bottle, Ginny's out of the bottle rather, and then there's no going back. And there are good and bad actors, yes, but the technology itself is so groundbreaking that it is going to have a massive impact. I'd rather be on the side of, just seeing how it kind of pans out and has an impact on the world.
Yeah, I totally feel you, and I completely agree.
So now, moving on to some perhaps funnier bits and adding some splash of fun into the episode, I would love to ask you, this is a completely hypothetical question. If you could, say, create a blockchain fantasy league, okay, and like a team for your uh, link, LightLink success, and these characters can be from anywhere, from video games or movies, who would be your top three picks, and how do you think they would contribute to the success of the platform?
Top three picks. Wow. Um, Elon Musk, number one. Yeah. So I'm reading the later book by Walter Isaacson on Elon Musk, right?
Right,
Fascinating
yeah,
character. I've always been super fascinated about with his journey, and it's not easy, right?
yeah.
And I read a biography on him years ago as well, because it highlights, even though we see the glimpses of a billionaire, but
Hmm.
there's so much grit and failure and on borderline mental breakdowns, right? Like
Right,
the
right.
journey hasn't been
Absolutely.
easy. So
Yeah,
so, but at the same time, to have that kind of vision to go, hey, we have to be interplanetary,
yeah.
because that's the only one for humanity to survive. There isn't a lot of people who are thinking from this perspective, and hopefully, uh, us as a collective can realize some of the dreams that these visionaries hold. And I wish there was more people like that. That's less about speculation, less about stock price, more about how can we build a better humanity. Um, in terms of others, yeah, I think smart mathematicians, but at the same time, it'd be cool to have people that you enjoy work with along the way. So
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Rick and Morty. So
Right.
so having a math scientist, Rick, would be very fascinating, but would probably end up killing each other, and he probably Elon Musk will kill each other. So we kind of need a intermediary in the middle to stop that battle, right?
Yeah.
So somebody with superpowers that can, to prevent them from killing each other. So that's all I got. How about you?
Yeah, so I think if I had to put up a team, I think, you took one. I do think Rick would be a great addition to my team as well. But then again, can be very abrasive. So because I'm also a very headstrong person, we might just, as you said, we might end up like hurting each other. But yes, definitely Rick, and perhaps somebody like, I'm a little old school that way. So I would love to have Iron Man because, seems very I think from the very beginning, I've kind of admired the way technology was always sort of built in into his character. And for the third, I'll have to think a little about this. We'd want somebody who's a little because talking strictly in fictional terms, and I'm thinking like Elon Musk obviously would be a wonderful addition, but if you had to think in terms of fiction, it would have to be somebody who brings like the right balance of math and science and cryptography, like some character that kind of has a mix of all of these, and with perhaps a little background in humanities. That would be like a perfect fit. But I'm hard pressed to think of a character right away. But yeah, Iron Man, Rick, and somebody with a mix of all of these four things. I think that would be like a great team to build on
Yeah,
something.
interesting. Interesting. It doesn't make sense for Iron Man to go into battle himself, right? Like the because the
Yeah,
suit can be completely autonomous. So I mean,
exactly.
yeah, it's a bit more dramatized, but I do see him as a fantastic character, and I love the character a lot as well. Um, yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, when you start thinking like that, it's fairly nice to think and make a hypothetical team. Now, I do understand on some level now when since I've started adding and asking this question, why people are so fascinated by fantasy league sports. Because now I get it, but earlier I used to not. But yeah, it can be interesting to sort of just think about it. Okay, so now coming to perhaps my penultimate question, a little about, your team and your culture, at LightLink, and if somebody wants to perhaps join LightLink, how can they go about doing that? And if you could give me a brief overview about how many people are there on your team, and what are the various departments? Are you guys working remotely? That'll be wonderful.
Yeah, sure. So I'm based in Melbourne, Australia, but our team is fairly global.
Hmm.
Our head of foundations in Dubai. One of our chief engineers is in Dublin. We have other engineers around the world, in Brazil, in Vietnam, in other parts of Australia as well. So yeah, we're fairly diverse, and global. Personally, I've worked, operated, predominantly online for decades. Communicated online, built companies together online. Our organization, our team for LightLink is about 20 at the moment.
Hmm.
My co-founder balances me really well. She's very strong in operations, finance, processes, where I'm predominantly, technology and, think about all elements from a technical perspective, right? So we're fairly open. There isn't much hierarchy. It's a very flat organization, and we communicate and work together in Slack, just like a lot of Web3 companies.
Yeah, most
To
Web3 companies now are remote. I think, mine too.
Yeah,
So I think COVID kind of had a lot of horrors with it, but one good thing that came out of it perhaps was this move towards remote work. It gives you so much access, right? I mean, hire talent from anywhere, and that is wonderful.
yeah, completely agree. Um, and working with us, I think, is fairly easy, because if you send me a email to go, hey, can I work with you? I'm good at this and that. Uh, it's very unlikely that I will respond to that email, right? But
Yeah.
if you are a participant in the community, if you go to Discord and help people, and add value to what we do, and show that you are helpful, you're resourceful, then it's very likely you will become a important part of the community. And similarly, if you're a developer building on top of the ecosystem, right? Like it's participating in a hackathon, help us to have a better ecosystem, then I think that will help us heaps, and it will make a lot of sense for us to figure out how to incentivize you, and reward you for the contribution that you have made to the ecosystem. And we have funds set aside to reward that type of participation. So, yeah, I mean, it's fairly straightforward. It's not, can I have a job type of thing, but, and I guess this is something that I also value. Put money where your mouth is, right? Like, do the thing that
Right.
you
Get
say
your
you're going
hands
to do.
dirty. Exactly. Get your hands
Exactly,
dirty, and
exactly.
then you'll
And
be
it's
able
not
to sort
difficult.
of, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Brilliant. So, now that, our listeners also know how to perhaps get involved with LightLink, and I, for one, am very excited to really tinker with your chain after this recording. Now coming to my last question, and this is something I ask everyone that comes up for the show. If you, because, you've been on the other side of the spectrum when you initially started in Web 2 with a gaming platform and whatnot. If you had to give advice to somebody who's peering in from the other side, what would be your advice to them? Perhaps your top three suggestions for them to start living on blockchain.
Yeah. So years ago, I was thinking about, and this is an exercise that I used to do quite often, and I should probably do it now, is uh, turn off distractions, right? Like,
Yeah,
because you can occupy your entire day on Twitter, on Discord, on Telegram. Turn them all
yeah,
off, and think think however you like to think. Maybe it's music, maybe it's nature, maybe it's darkness, maybe it's morning or night or whatever. Think about where the world is going. Think about how the technology trends are converging. Think about what would matter to people in the future. Maybe not
Right.
present. Think about what would be important in the future, and then go and build it. You don't need permission from anybody. Right now, it's so accessible and so cheap. There is so much open source tooling out there. There's so much infrastructure out there. LightLink is one of them, but there are so much more others, like Facebook open source. It's Llama 2, right? Like it's LLM world. In terms of thinking about where the future is, and then instead of waiting for it to happen, go and make it happen and roll up your sleeves. If you don't know how to learn, if you don't know how to do programming, and it's something that you want to learn, there's so much free information out there. YouTube can teach you
Yeah,
anything. If you
absolutely.
want to be business development in one of the leading companies in the world, go and do it. And like what I was saying earlier about participating in Discord and contributing to the ecosystem, roll up your sleeves and act, right? So I think instead of talking, action speaks louder than everything else. And maybe advice for those who want to participate: think about the future and act on the future and proactively make the future happen. So go and do that.
Yeah, I think that's very good advice. Just go ahead. Don't let your fears strangle you, and or your dreams for that matter. And if there is something that you truly believe in solving, go ahead and do it in your small way. And I am a big proponent, and I truly believe actually that, if you start doing and taking steps in the right direction, help will come. In case you need help, if you ask, people would be more than ready to lend you a helping hand. And right now, in this day and age, there's really no excuse to not go after the things that you truly believe in.
Yeah, exactly right.
So, Roy, this has been an absolute pleasure. And, we are completely out of time. We are running over. Thank you so much for making the time to speak to me. Before we wrap this up, any last thoughts?
No, thanks for the opportunity. It's really good to speak with you. I think firstly I can't do this alone, so we always do everything as a team,
Right.
and it's the dedication, blood, sweat, tears of our team members that make this happen. So huge thanks to everybody who's helping us to make this happen, and we hope to be an important part of the new internet, the new infrastructure. And the current technology doesn't have this scaling capability, and we're here to try to introduce this technology for millions and millions of users that should join in the next cycle to see the true benefits and value this technology can provide. So yeah, we're here, and watch what we do.
Absolutely. I'm into that. I think, you guys are going to become a very big part of this particular new tech era that we're already in, and that's just going to get bigger from here. Thank you once again, Roy, for speaking to me. This has been a really wonderful conversation.
Likewise, thank you very much.